Greetings! Welcome to my channel, everyone. This is my first impression video about the Star Trek series called Star Trek Discovery. At this time, I have seen up to episode 6 of Star Trek Discovery. So this will be an opinion/review video. First opinion, there are slight spoilers. Now, before we begin, I must preface by saying I am a huge Star Trek fan. I saw TNG as it debuted in 1987 on TV when I was 7 years old. I followed the debut of DS9 and Voyager and Enterprise. I have also seen all of the original Star Trek. I have also seen the original movies, the Generation movies, the rebooted J.J. Abrams movies. I have played many Star Trek games, including Elite Force, Bridge Commander, and of course for 7+ years, Star Trek Online. I'm a huge fan, yet I do approach this new series with an open mind, as I have every series. There is no question that this series has garnered a lot of debate, a lot of polarization among fans. It is a controversial show, so I am here just to offer my first opinions on this show. If you would like to see a more in-depth analysis of each episode, a breakdown, I might be able to provide this in future videos. If you would like to see that, leave me comments and let me know. Contributing to Patreon would be a great way to show your support and allow me to do videos such as that, because they are quite involved. I've also considered doing some reaction videos to each episode. Again, would be involved, so your support would be very welcomed and allow me to do something like that. Let me know, and if there's a lot of feedback and support for it, I will do more in regards to this TV series. For now, this is my first impressions. So here we go. Here's my first thought about the show. It's Star Trek, but it doesn't feel like Star Trek. It is a good science fiction show, and if it were named something different, it would fit a lot better. As a Star Trek show, looking at it straight on as a Star Trek show, coming with all the history of Star Trek behind me, it does not feel like a Star Trek show because nobody is acting like they should in it. The characters aren't, the personalities aren't, and neither even the starships aren't. And I'm going to explain a little bit about all that. I'm not going to go into a huge amount of detail on it, but I'm just going to go over the main points of my contention with the show and what I feel is negative about the show. Now, on the flip side of that, I do have some positive things to say. I am not 100% negative on the show. I am not hating on this show. There are positive things to say about the show, and the fact that I have seen 6 episodes and want to see the rest of them also says something. So let's start with the very, very first thing. The visuals of the show. Now, we have to accept as fans and or non-fans that the show is being made in 2017, and this is not the 1960s. It's going to look different. It's going to be filmed different. There's going to be a different tone because of what's popular at the time. Now, that said, while we can accept and put aside the visuals, we cannot put aside the characterizations and personalities of how different alien species and the humans and Starfleet and Federation and Vulcans and Klingons and on and on and on should be acting in the series, considering it takes place 10 years prior to James T. Kirk Star Trek. So this is only 10 years prior to James T. Kirk. In fact, it was mentioned in episode 6, the Constitution-class Enterprise is a known ship. So knowing that, and knowing that this takes place in that era, people should be acting like we're used to. And so far, I have not seen anybody, except maybe Michael, acting like they should be. And we'll start with the Starfleet Officers. Starfleet Officers are not acting like Starfleet Officers. There is a lot of drama between the human crews. You see a lot of decisions that the first officer or the captains or different members make that don't seem like Starfleet officers in any other series would make those kinds of decisions. I just really get a feel that nobody is acting correctly. Even the admirals that we see, nobody is acting like a Starfleet officer. And that is very off-putting, because that is your core of the Star Trek series right there. If nobody else acted the same, you would at least expect that Starfleet and the Federation would be what we know of. And it doesn't feel like they are. It feels like a different organization. It feels like something completely different. So that's a little off-putting right from the start. Okay. One instance that I will cite where this really bugged me was a recent episode with the tardigrade, where nobody cared about the life of this thing except maybe Michael. And that's just not something you would see in a Star Trek series. Life, even if it had the chance of any kind of intelligence, would be well cared for. Could you imagine Picard or Janeway making the same decisions that this captain or this crew did with this tardigrade? Absolutely not. Even Kirk wouldn't do that. They would try to save the life of this thing. In fact, there have been whole episodes in Star Trek just about that, about what is intelligent life, and the measure of a man, as it were, which actually was an episode. It's a thing that just a Starfleet officer wouldn't act like, and they acted so not like a Starfleet officer with this tardigrade. That really bugged me. Vulcans don't act like Vulcans. Shoot first, ask questions later. This logical faction that act like terrorists. This mind melding across light years. Michael, a human, able to mind meld with Sarek, or Sarek mind meld with her over light years without even touching. Wow. I mean, just out of left field on that one. Don't even know what to say on that one. Klingons that don't act like Klingons. Heck, they don't even look like Klingons. So put that aside, they are overly religious. They act more like the Goa'uld from Stargate. They don't act like Klingons were used to. They're not. It's just different. Even if the houses were all separated like this and not together as one, which is a thing I could see with the Klingons, they didn't act anything like that in Enterprise or the original Star Trek. In the original Star Trek, in fact, they seem very cohesive as an alien species. They didn't seem this spread apart. And for some reason, all of a sudden, they're spread apart here. So, I don't know. We've got starships that don't even act like starships. The USS Discovery with a spore drive using mycelium spores to travel an invisible network in the galaxy of, I don't know what it is, some kind of spore system. And it can travel along them and instantly jump from one place to another. Something we've never heard of before, never seen before. We know that it cannot be a lasting thing. It cannot be an end-game result because it's never been in any Star Trek, and they still use warp drive. So, I mean, and in fact, then they got, transwarp and slipstream, and they've never gone back to this spore drive thing. Even if they did have it, it's never been used or talked about. Out of left field, just out of left field. It's cool science fiction, but maybe not in Star Trek. Star Trek is more about the technology. I could see this spore drive thing and something, in a different kind of show, but not Star Trek. I don't see it in Star Trek. It doesn't make a lot of sense, and also it's just kind of convenient. I like the idea of exploring a new propulsion system. I just think that it should have been something different. Like maybe this was Starfleet's very early attempts at trying to create transwarp. Now that would have been compelling, because in fact we know the Enterprise B, not the B, but the Excelsior, right after the Constitution class, the one that the B was based off of, we saw it in Star Trek 3, The Search for Spock, the movie. That ship was an experimental transwarp ship. So we know that Starfleet would be experimenting probably in this period of time with that kind of thing. So if this were like their early experiments at transwarp, that would connect the show a lot better to what we've seen on screen and would be more compelling. This Spore thing is just, it doesn't make sense, and it just doesn't make sense at all. No sense. They should have used something that we know eventually gets experimented with but doesn't pay off down the road, and that would be transwarp at this time. That would be something that would make sense. That would be compelling, and maybe they had a few successful transwarp jumps, and they used it for a little while, and then it, ended up just not working or whatever consistently. That would be a compelling storyline. Holographic communication. Okay, we didn't even see this until DS9, and yet here it is 10 years before Kirk. And they're so advanced with this holographic communication that they can move around a room, sit on a desk. Give me a break. Now we also have holodecks. That's right. In episode 6 of Discovery, they are training in a holodeck. I don't even have to say any more about that, right? That's just like, where do you draw the line? Apparently there is no line now. Just anything can be in Discovery. This is just a little thing, but I've kind of seen this overcompensating with Starfleet insignia, or the Starfleet logo, everywhere in the show. Anywhere they can cram it, they cram a Starfleet logo. Look for it, you'll see it everywhere. And it's a little overwhelming. It's almost like they're forcing it down our throats to show us that this is Star Trek, this is the Federation, this is a Star Trek series, by putting the logo everywhere. And it's a bit overwhelming. Like I said, jamming it down our throats. They also try to mention Starfleet and Federation, those two words, a lot in the series. Again, they're trying to push it down our throat that this is a Star Trek show. I think they're overcompensating just a little bit there with that. Maybe they don't have confidence in it themselves, and they want to remind us of that. All right, so those are some negatives about the series. And I could probably come up with more negatives. If I really thought about it and wrote it down, I could probably come up with a lot more negatives, okay? But let's switch the tables a bit and talk about some positives about the show, because there are some good things about this show. Even though it has human conflict, it does bring up some good questions between the characters, and you have these command decision questions that are coming up, and you actually feel the weight of it on their shoulders. I can feel the weight of it on their shoulders. That's pretty good drama right there. It's got good drama. It also has good science fiction and like an exploration kind of feel almost to it. And I like that. That is very Star Trek, when you have exploration and science fiction. That is very good. Some other good things about it are that they're bringing up some things that we, of course, know about in future series. For example, if you have seen episode 6, they talk about the fact that Sarek had to make this decision between sending Michael or Spock to the Vulcan Science Academy, and we end up learning that he sent Spock, but of course Spock wanted to be in Starfleet, so he chose Starfleet. But it was very cool when I was listening to that, because I was like, yeah, I get that now, because I know Spock's history, and that was a very cool tie-in. I liked that kind of thing. I also am not upset with the fact that this is a Klingon war kind of show. It makes sense that the Federation would have these ins and out Klingon wars, with the Klingons. I don't like how they've handled the Klingons, and I don't like the motivation of some of the things and all of that, but I do like the conflict with the Klingons, because that is very Star Trek, except, of course, in Kirk's time, they're not at war so much like this. Maybe things get better in the next 10 years. I don't know, but I'm guessing they would have to. But I do like this as a prequel to that. I like the interaction, of this being like a Klingon war type of story. I always thought that Enterprise should have been a Romulan war story. It should have been about the start of the Earth-Romulan War. The very beginnings of the Federation. That's what Enterprise should have been. So I'm all right with this Klingon war story. I don't like how it all went down, but I like kind of maybe where it's going. And really I don't have any complaints about the plot there. That's actually not terrible to watch. I like the use of technology, even though some of it seems a little far-fetched for the time period and what we're used to in the show, or what should be for this time period. I do like the use of technology and how they integrate it with the show. So there are some good things about this show. One thing to keep in mind with any TV show is it needs to be entertaining. And if you are not entertained, and if you don't want to see what happens from one episode to the next, well, then it's not good for you. But for me, I am captivated in what happens from one episode to the next. I want to see what the next episode brings. And so it captures me in that aspect. I want to see it. It's entertaining enough to watch. As a science fiction show, as a show with action and drama, I am entertained by it. I would urge anybody who is questioning whether this show is good or bad to watch it for themselves. It all comes down to what you think about it, and the only way that you can determine if you like it or not is not by listening to my comments, not by listening to somebody else's comments, but by watching it yourself and determining if that's something you want to watch. Only through actually watching it and gaining an educated experience with it can you decide for yourself if you like it. And so that's where I would like to leave this video. Is my first impressions are, watch it for yourself. You may find you like it, and you may find you hate it. But whatever the case, don't let somebody else tell you if you should or should not like it. If you're a fan of Star Trek and you love this series, then by all means watch it and be entertained. And if you are a fan or not a fan and you absolutely hate this series, then just don't watch it. But at least give it a chance and see if you do. It's just like any other TV series out there. Give it a chance and see if you like it. Otherwise, that is my first impressions of the show. That's my thoughts. Let me know below what you think. Let me know below what you think of your thoughts on this show. Have you seen it? Do you like it? Do you hate it? Are you going to continue to watch it? I would love to hear feedback. Is this going to be the best Star Trek show ever? No. Is it entertaining? That depends on you. But don't hate on those that do like it, and don't hate on those that don't like it. Let everybody discover it. I got that in there. Let everybody discover it for themselves. And if they like it, great. And if they don't like it, great. For me, I am going to keep watching it to the series end. If it gets a season 2, I'd probably watch it as well. Until I get to the point where I am not entertained by it anymore. So thank you all for watching, and stay tuned for the next one.